All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's Agent Development Training. We're continuing with our summer speaker series, and we have Mr. Mike Gatteri with us this morning. So I'm going to pivot over to Mike in just a second. Couple of just kind of house cleaning things. Number one, if you're in front of your camera and can turn it on and you're not traveling, I'd love to see you. It's way better to look at your smiling face than it is a black box. So that'd be great. I'm not going to go over the agent status report like we typically do on Tuesday mornings. I'm actually going to email it out to everybody so you can see where you stand with just a few days left. We probably got one more commission cycle to come through, I think. So we'll see where things land here at the end of the month from a tier perspective. Also wanted to let you all know that we are not going to have any of our training for next week. I'm going to be out of town for the 4th of July. Christy's going to be out of town. I know a number of you are traveling. So no agent development training, no roundtable discussions, and no lunch and learn on Thursday. We are going to suspend the lunch and learn that Sandra was hosting on Thursday afternoons for the month of July. So we're not going to have that at all in the month of July, and we'll kick that back in August 1st. I did want to, for those of you who are obviously involved in Medicare, which should be just about everybody on the call, AHIP is happening right now. I know a lot of you have gotten started on it. I have heard some intel, and I threw some things out there to our team, just being careful. I think it's the third or fourth, I think it's the fourth section. I've gotten some good intel from some reputable sources that you want to make sure you read through it and that you don't just fly through it. There's some kind of new things you need to understand in that. I have not yet completed my AHIP, but our goal as a team is to have it done by the end of July. So I think this holiday week, as things slow down a little bit, it might be a good opportunity to get that AHIP knocked out. Make sure that if you're doing that, you are getting some sort of a discount. If you do it through the Health Markets link that has been sent out previously, you can actually tap into, I think it's a $50 discount. Some of the carriers are offering $50 discounts. And then there's probably a handful of you that are in some sort of an elite status with one of our carrier partners, where you may have gotten a direct link from them for it to be even discounted at a higher rate or possibly even free. I know a couple of agents, just based on their sales from last year, they had a carrier that was willing to pay for their AHIP. So regardless of how you do it, it's important to get it done. We are going to start bringing in the outside carriers in the month of August. And so we'll start getting sneak peeks here. I think Anthem's nationwide sneak peek should hit the resource center later today or tomorrow. So the carriers are starting to put out kind of their sneak peeks of what their plans are going to be for 2023. And then we'll begin negotiating for co-op dollars and things like that in the coming weeks and months as well. So I can't believe we're back to AHIP. It's that time of year. One other thing I just wanted to mention is when we hit the end of the month here, this is a wonderful time mid-year for everybody to take a look at their earnings summary and just see where you stand over the first 6 months of this year as compared to the first 6 months of 2021. I think that's a really healthy process to go through and look back at that. If you guys don't know where that's at, you can go into the reports on the Resource Center and go to the earnings summary, and you can run it for 2022 and then 2021 independent of that, and just kind of compare and contrast a little bit, how much has your business grown this year? And that will give you a pretty good idea of the trajectory that you're on from an income perspective for the rest of this year, which will help you on a number of things, including tax planning, strategies and things. So that's worth checking out. If you have a cool story to tell, which most of you do from an income growth perspective, I'd love to hear that story and kind of hear how much you are ahead of where you were last year at this point in the year. So I always think that first week in July is a wonderful time just to kind of reassess, reevaluate, look at your goals and game plan, and make sure you're on track to, achieve everything that you wanted to achieve this year. Last announcement that I have is that we do have a national call. Christy, that's Thursday at 3, is that right? Okay, so Thursday at 3. I don't know all of the content, but I do know there's a number of things that our executive team wants to go over with us. So I'd encourage all of you, make sure you're on that call if at all possible. You'll be able to do it from your phone or wherever you are traveling as well. So hopefully you guys can jump into that. So with that, I'm going to pivot over and leave the rest of our time here together to really have a good conversation with Mike Gatteri. Mike and I have always had kind of a special bond in this business. We both began in the business on 9/11/01. And so he's been around as long as I have, which is a long, long time. We're probably both a little grayer and a little older, since we first started. But Mike, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you popping on with us. I know we've been trying to coordinate this, and you're a world traveler, it sounds like, based on our emails back and forth over the last couple of months. But thanks.
Yeah. Oh, not a problem. Glad to be here. And yeah, this time of year, I try to do as much traveling as I can because obviously September, October, November, December, I'm in this office 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I always like to start off. I mean, a lot of guys and gals on the call don't know you, don't know who you are, where you came from, kind of your start with health markets. So I always like to start with a little bit about, what was your health market story? Kind of give us some context on how you came into the business. And obviously we've seen a lot over the last 2 decades. But love for you to just kind of bring the team up to speed on your background with the company.
Yeah, so like you said, I started September 11th, 2001. So coming up on 21 years, which is crazy. I'm soon to have spent more of my life with the company than I have without the company. I was 22 when I started here. I was finishing up my college degree. And so for you Notre Dame fans, I'm sorry. I am a U of M graduate, so don't hate me. Yeah, I was finishing up my degree, didn't know where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. So I was taking any interview that I could just to kind of figure it out. And I sat with a gentleman by the name of Mark Zadie, who told me I was going to make $100,000 my second year and $150,000 my third year. And I thought he was full of it, but I said, you know what? I don't have any other options. So let's give it a shot for the next 6 months. And I still continued to keep a part-time job on the side. And so therefore I wasn't fully invested into health markets when I first started. And my first 6 months weren't terribly great. But I was making more part-time than I was at the other jobs part-time. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it right. And so in April of 21, I jumped on with both feet. I'm sorry, April of 22, I should say. I jumped in with both feet and decided to make this full-time and never looked back. It's been a great run since then. I had some national success. I was the number 2 rookie in 22. I was the number 4 personal producer in 22, number 4 personal producer in 20. I'm sorry. 2000. Anyway, you get the numbers. When I was a rookie. But then in 05, I was asked to become a sales leader and was a sales leader for 5 years. And then in 2010 was moved down to the Columbus area and became an agency manager in the Columbus area. I was an agency manager there for about 3 or 4 years until Obamacare came into effect. And I was demoted. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I went from being a salaried employee to having my freedom and independence back. And so I've been a sales leader now for the last 10 or 12 years again. And I'm in the process of relocating back to Michigan. So I've got an office in Columbus, an office in Michigan, and I spend 50% of the time down here in Columbus, 50% of the time up in the Detroit area.
Yeah. Well, I remember listening to you speak at a national convention very early in my career. And was it Home Depot you worked with back in the day?
Yeah.
Yes, because I remember you literally had a presentation that you did around, tying what you did at Home Depot to kind of the work that you do here. And that stuck in my mind. And that was probably 17, 18 years ago, right?
Yeah, it would have been 03 or 04.
Yeah. Well, I know you started in the business like I did, and in that we had to generate a lot of leads. And, that's one of the things I always like to really talk about. There's a lot of newer agents on the team today who are trying to figure out, how do I work with crummy internet leads? And then how do I build my business independent of that through organic marketing? And I'd love to just kind of hear your perspective on maybe the mix between those two things and what you've done over the years to, obviously work internet leads and a lot of the leads that come in, but also separate from that, build your own referral sources and things.
Yeah. So the first thing you have to do is you got to get your mindset around what you're trying to accomplish, because mindset is 99% of this business. And just like none of us could ever come into health markets and be the CEO, you can't come into any job and be upper level management. You have to start at the bottom and work your way up. That's exactly how your marketing game plan is going to go. You have to start with the grunt work. You have to put in the elbow grease. It's tough sledding there for a while. But if you get your mind around every month, it's going to get easier. And every week, it's going to get a little bit easier. And you see what the end goal is. It's all about perspective. And so when I came on board, I knew that I didn't have the money to invest into the business, but I had the time. Right? So there's 2 assets you have out there. You have money or you have time. Brand new agents have a lot more time and a lot less money. Veteran agents have a lot more money and a lot less time. So what you need to do is you need to spend the asset that is most accessible. And for a new agent, your time is more accessible. For a veteran agent, your money is more accessible. And so that's exactly what I did. As a brand new agent, I invested every minute that I could, walking into businesses, dropping off my business card, networking, just countless hours. It was grunt work all day, every day. And I knew that all I needed was 3 sales a week in order to hit my goals. If I had 3 sales a week, I would get to where I needed to be. And so if I broke down my week and said 3 sales over a 45-hour week, that's 1 sale every 15 hours. So what do I have to do to stumble across 1 sale every 15 hours? And so when I wasn't making my dials, when I wasn't walking and talking, when I wasn't networking, I was trying to find another activity that would generate business. But it was all 100% grunt work. And I'll tell you a gross story, but it's the honest to God truth. Money was so tight for me when I started that I couldn't afford to go out to lunches. I couldn't afford to, have meals on a daily basis out. But, I was 22, so I certainly wasn't going to cook at home. I wasn't going to make my own meals. So back then, Little Caesars by me used to do 1 day a week. They'd do a $2.50 large pizza. So I bought 3 large pizzas and ate half a large pizza every day for my lunch. And I ate pizza every day for lunch for probably 6 months in order to save as much money as I could to be able to give back to the business. Now, that may not sound super gross until you found out that I was incredibly lazy and didn't want to keep the pizzas in the fridge and take half a pizza a day. So they stayed in the back of my car. And so by the end of the week, day 5 old pizza from the back of the car was pretty nasty. In the winter, it wasn't terrible, but in the summertime when it was 80, 90 degrees, it was pretty gross by the end of the week. But that's a sad but true story.
That is horrible. but funny nonetheless. And it's amazing the things that we'll do oftentimes to get that business off the ground,
Yep.
So what does your mix look like today? Are you still working leads? Do you still have a process for that? Is it all referrals and personally developed leads? What does your practice look like today?
So I don't work leads anymore. I don't do anything from the company per se. Everything I do is advertising and word of mouth. So like I said, I got away from the investing time and I got to the investing money part of the business. But here's what you have to do. Before any of you invest a penny into your business, you have to have a brand, right? McDonald's has a brand, who their target market is and what they're going after and what they're trying to accomplish in those ads. Budweiser, Home Depot, if you think about it, Home Depot and Lowe's, similar companies or different companies? They're very different companies. Home Depot goes after the contractor, the blue collar, Lowe's goes after the DIYer, the do-it-yourselfer, the homeowner. Walk into their stores. Lowe's is very brightly lit. It has all sorts of decor and finishing products. Home Depot is dingy and gross and dirty, and their colors are drab. Same industry, but 2 very, very different target customers. Who's your target customer? If you don't know who your target customer is, why are you spending money on marketing? And so for me, I figured out what I wanted my brand to be. And my brand was education. I want my customers to feel like they are very well versed in this industry when they sit with me. I don't want my customer to ever buy something from me and wonder, why did Mike tell me to buy that product? So I spend a lot of time and energy educating my customers. I actually built out a website. It's myinsuranceClassroom.com. I think of it like the YouTube of health insurance. I go out and I teach people how the industry works. And so a lot of my time and energy now is spent pushing that brand. And so I get a ton of referrals because of the fact that my customers know that they're not going to be sold. They're not going to be pushed into a product. It's not going to be high pressure. And it's a very comfortable and pleasant experience for them. And they are very comfortable then sending other people that they know to me. And in this day and age of social media, literally over a third of my business comes from Facebook. Yet I don't spend a penny on Facebook marketing. It's all word of mouth and people passing along my contact information, passing along my website information so that people will come to me from social media.
Let's talk. I want to go a little more granular on that. So what are the actual like practical activities that you're doing to drive that? Is it just living your life on Facebook, or is how much more to it is there than that?
It starts that way. So I would assume in pretty much every community that you guys live in, there is a Facebook page for that community. And when you need a landscaper, you go to that page and you say, I'm in search of a landscaper. Or you need a plumber and you say, who's the best plumber out there? I scoured my local Facebook pages waiting for someone to say they needed health insurance. And as soon as they did, I reached out to them. Not only did I reach out to them, but I sent them a personal message because I wanted to be different than the rest, right? With marketing, you got to be different. You've got to be unique. So while everyone else was saying, hey, this is the guy you should use, this is who you should call, I reached out to that person directly and said, give me a call. I'll be more than happy to help. And so that person did business with me, but they were also a business owner. So what do I have now? I've got a business partner. Hey, you run a landscaping company. Next time I'm on that page, if I see anyone who's looking for landscaping, you better believe I'm going to tag you. But in return, I'm going to ask that you do the exact same thing for me. And a week or two later, someone else said that they were looking for insurance and they were in IT. So I got tagged by that landscaper. I then reached out because I saw the tag. Now they've got the landscaper recommending me and me reaching out. They did business with me. Now my marketing team just went to 3, a landscaper, an IT person, and myself. And it grew from there to where now literally in my little city that I live in, and I am in a very small city here in Columbus, if someone asks who to use for health insurance, I'm 95% of the recommendations. There'll be 18 responses and I'll be 15 of the 18. But it's just started one at a time. And now I'm locked in. I am that trusted guy. And all I need is my little community. If I can get 90% of my little community, that's enough to run my business for the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's really granular stuff that can be very practical. So I want to go back to, is you said, I spend money on advertising. I don't work leads. Advertising is a big thing. Again, would you go a little more granular? What are you doing? What's the advertising that you're actually investing in that you feel is working?
So there's always hit or miss, right? Different communities. As I'm building my Detroit office back up, what's working up there doesn't necessarily work in Columbus, and what works in Columbus doesn't necessarily work in Detroit. So it's always going to be a little bit hit or miss. But you need to identify who your target customer is. For my target customer, it's 55 plus. 55 plus still watches TV. 55 plus is still listening to traditional radio. So that works well for me. Back a couple of years ago, when everyone was getting laid off with COVID, and I tried to capture a little bit of that market, TV and radio didn't work well. So I did more with internet with them. So again, you have to go to see who your target customer is, and then you take a step back and you say, all right, how does my target customer consume media? Where do they go? Where do they shop? What are their interests? And that's where you attack. Because if you try this shotgun effect, it doesn't work, right? Shotgun marketing, that's 1930s, 1940s. You have to be very, very pinpointed today. And if you've got an ad that's targeted to seniors and you're putting it on Instagram, probably not going to work, right? If you're on TikTok marketing for final expense, probably not going to work. So you just have to take a step back and say, who's my target customer? What's their age? What's their income? What type of work, blue collar, white collar? I mean, Silas has said the word granular. I think that's super important in regards to figuring out who you're going to market to. Get very, very specific in regards to who you want as a customer. That doesn't mean that I won't take people who aren't 55 plus. Doesn't mean that I won't take referrals from anything outside of that. But if I gear my marketing towards a very specific customer and I market to where that customer consumes their media, that's how I can make sure that my ads are effective. Yeah. And that's the last thing we want to do is waste marketing dollars on an ad that isn't effective, because regardless of if you're making 50 grand or 500 grand, wasting money is the worst thing possible.
Right. So why is your target audience 55 plus?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I prefer the Medicare customer. My end goal is to get them to be a Medicare customer. And so 55 to 64 is my farm system. They're established. They should have a disposable income that's high enough. I don't like dealing with subsidies. I don't like dealing with the marketplace, garbage that comes along with it. So as much as possible, I want to get away from that. So that the younger family who might be self-employed for 6 months and then back in corporate America for 6 months, they might struggle financially every year or so. I found that business was more volatile, and 55 plus was more consistent. I could work with financial planners and get all these people who are retiring early, and they would be my customers for that 5 to 10 year period before they became Medicare age. And once I got them for Medicare, they were mine forever. But instead of trying to compete for everyone at 64, right? I'm competing with every company in the world at 64. If I can lock them in at 55, then when they get that stack of mail at age 64, they're throwing it out. They're disregarding JJ Walker. They're ignoring all these ads that they're seeing out there. So I want them at 55.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. And you start looking at the demographics. I mean, they say there's 11,000 people a day turning 65, and over the next 6 years, that's going to double to 22,000 a day. So you're hitting it right in that sweet spot of, where people are going to be coming in mass volume, and people are going to need help. So yeah, I love that. So do you have anyone who helps support you in your business today? Do you have an assistant, a sub agent, anybody else supporting you?
So I have 2 assistants, one of which is technically a sub agent, and I'm hiring a 3rd one out of the Detroit office. So I have 2 people in Columbus, and I apologize. It says my internet's unstable. So if I cut out, stop me and let me know. But I've got 2 people in Columbus. I've got 1 person who's starting up in Detroit. And while one is a sub agent and the one who's in Detroit is going to be a sub agent, I don't use my sub agents to sell. Okay, my sub agents are used to support, and don't get me wrong, if there's a re-enrollment, yes, I want them to be able to complete that, but in no way, shape, or form do my sub agents do any selling for me. I like to think of my practice like a doctor's office, right? You've got the receptionist, she books you, she gathers some basic information. You come into the doctor's office, you meet with the nurse who gathers some more preliminary information, but at the end of the day, everyone goes to the doctor's office to see the doctor. And I want to be the doctor. I want to be the guy who, gives them the answers, builds the proposal, helps them with the solution. But I've got people who are kind of helping throughout the process so that I can come in, do what I need to do, hand the file off to someone else, and continue moving.
So is your support staff booking all your appointments, making your outbound calls, all of that? Or you
that's what the Michigan agent or the Michigan assistant is going to do. So we're bringing her on board here in another week to have her ready to go for open enrollment. But as of today, I still book all of my appointments.
Yeah. So referrals, do you track how many referrals you bring in on an annual basis?
Yes.
You have I'm just interested in how many are you bringing in annually?
So I run, I saw the question that you sent out yesterday, but this time of year, I'm averaging about 30 appointments a week. Of those, about 16 to 17 a week are coming from referrals.
I'm sorry, did you say 30 appointments a week?
Yeah.
30.
Yeah, so today I have, excluding my meeting with the assistants and this meeting, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 appointments today. So if I do that 4 or 5 days a week, that's my 30.
It's 30. I tell new agents, if you can get 5 or 6 appointments a week, you're going to be okay. 30 appointments a week. That's why you're 400,000 ahead of the number 1 agent in my entire territory. It's appointment count above all else.
Absolutely. That if you take one thing from what we talk about today, it's marketing. This business is marketing. If you call yourself a salesperson, if you call yourself an insurance agent, if you think of yourself in the sales realm, you're missing the boat. We are marketers. That's what we do. And of the 25 people on this call, if we've got the best salesperson out of the 25 who averages 2 appointments a week, or the worst salesperson out of the 25 who averages 15 appointments a week, I want the second one, because that work. I mean, Silas, were you born and bred into the insurance industry?
No.
When I started September 11th, 2001, I knew squat about insurance. The way I learned was out there in the field. And so, yeah, the agent that has 15 appointments a week may have very, very little sales ability, may have very, very little industry knowledge. But guess what? That's not going to last very long when you're running 15 appointments a week. So if you reprogram your minds to think that you're not insurance agents, you're not salespeople, you're marketers, that's where you truly become successful. And not to kind of brag on this, but I love this number. During open enrollment, I average more than 110 appointments a week. No joke.
So how long are your appointments lasting?
30 to 45 minutes. So 30 for an existing customer, 45 for a new customer. And I will meet with all of my existing customers if that's what they want to do. Just like you have, done for years, and I stole that letter from you. I try to compartmentalize my customers, right? Customers I really don't need to see, customers I may need to see, and the customers I absolutely need to see. But I still see all of my existing customers if that's what they need to do. And so that's why I'm running 110 appointments a week during that time period. But if the average one's between 30 to 45 minutes, that's my 60 to 70 hour work week. Right. So yeah, it's a lot of go. And I think that's the one thing that you'll find. If you look at supplemental sales per appointment or supplemental dollars per sale, if you will, I'm not high in regards to supplemental sales per appointment. I'm not high in regards to my average life size, my case, dollar amount per life deal. I don't sell big deals. I go and I go and I go. And to me, that was always the thing, is I grind and I grind and I grind. And to this point now, I've built up 3,000-4,000 customers. And if you can make a couple bucks per customer times 3,000 or 4,000, and now that they upped our health insurance commissions, I know for a fact that the health insurance part is really what has pushed my residual. So when they upped that health insurance residual commission, that was huge for me. Yeah.
I'm honestly stunned by how many appointments you're running. I didn't realize it was that many. I mean, I knew it had to be a bunch, but that's pretty insane. So how do you find, you're able to get through everything you need to get through in 30 or 45 minutes with each prospect? Maybe I just talk too damn much.
I'm not a chatty person. I'm very direct. I'm very blunt. And during that time period, because of the fact, so I've got a customer info sheet that goes out to every customer. So they come to the appointment, name, date of birth, social security number, doctor's information, prescription information, all of that is pre-filled out before they get to the appointment, just like you would at your doctor's office. My assistant then takes that and puts it into Quote Connect, so that when I sit down with the customer, I know everything that I need to know about the customer's logistics. So I'm not spending time in Quote Connect typing in dates of birth and typing in doctors and typing in scripts. So I can get down to what's important to you, what do you want to have covered, what's your budget, etc. And so yes, if all of that legwork is done ahead of time, I can get through a new customer in 45 minutes.
Okay. So product wise, underlying health always kind of is where you start, but you're cross-selling into subs. Is it primarily Clico? Are you going other directions? Maybe just a quick synopsis of kind of what the go-to products are you're selling mostly.
Yeah. So with every customer, I do a 5 or 10 minute education. Here's how the ACA works. Here's how short-term plans work. Here's how those faith-based plans work. I talk about the positives, but I spend more time talking about the negatives. And so we go from 3 plan options down to 1 within about 5 or 10 minutes. Then from there, all right, which company is appropriate for you? And in the Detroit area, as well as in the Columbus area, there's a lot of single networked HMOs. So their doctor list really dictates which plan they're going to be in. And so within about 10, 15 minutes, we've got the health insurance side of it decided. But because pretty much every plan out there has an $8,700 max out of pocket, building in an accident companion, building in a critical illness to be able to offset those costs. If they go twice a year for a dental cleaning, dental's pretty much a no-brainer. So yes, on that first appointment, it's pretty much accident companion, critical illness, DVH. Now, we plant the seed for life. And then after the appointment, I send them an actual quote for life. And if they want to have that conversation during open enrollment time, we schedule them for after open enrollment. If they want to have that conversation this time of year, I'll book them for a day or two later and do a life only appointment.
Right. So like when you get, again, granular on this, what is driving your sup and your life sales? Is it just that you talk about it? Is there a robust fact finding experience that always drives you to that place? Like, what are the actual actions that you're taking to sell subs in life just about every time?
So one, going back to the very first thing I said, it's all mindset, right? You've got to be of the mindset that it's important to your customers, right? It's not important because of FYCRs. It's not important because of commissions. It's important because of what it does for your customers. And I know that for a lot of people, $8,700 out of pocket, it's a lot of money. And even if it's not a lot of money, so Accident Companion, $28 a month. Pays my customer $10,000 if they're in the hospital. So let's do the math on that. Let's kind of crunch it out. If my customer is in the hospital one time in the next 30 years, they will get more out of the plan than they put into the plan. Because at $28 a month, that's $300 a year. That's just about $1,000 every 3 years. So that's $10,000 every 30 years. If they use the plan once in 30 years, they get more out of it than they put into it. So I will get customers all the time. I don't need that. Okay, great. Silas, let me ask you a question. If you could buy $1 for 75 cents, how many dollars would you buy?
All of them.
Right. So if I can give you $10,000 and it doesn't cost you $10,000, whether you need it or not, why would you say no to it? And so I don't sell, but I appeal to people's logic. And so for me, I believe in these products. I believe in the cost structure to them. And so it's not something that I'm really willing to take off because it's silly to take it off. And so yes, it does start with the fact finding. Why are you buying insurance? Well, in case I get sick or in case I get hurt. Great. If you get hurt, are you going back to work the next day? If you get sick and have cancer, are you going back to work the next day? If I could give you 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand when you have cancer, would that make your life easier when that happens? I mean, here's a true to life story that just happened in the Detroit office about 2 weeks ago. One of my friends up there, his daughter got diagnosed with cancer. And the only treatment that they can have, because this is their second time around with it, is at Sloan Kettering in New York City. So dad quit his job because he has to live in New York City with his daughter for the next year in order to be able to save her. Now, it's a free trial. So there's no medical expense for this child. There's no deductible, there's no out of pocket, etc. So, but they still need to live. They still need groceries. They still need a place to stay. And so having that money would have been huge. So when you think of things in that regard, that's where you become passionate about it. And you stand your ground and you don't allow people to take it off is really what it comes down to.
Right. I want to go back to referrals. Are there specific actions that you take to drive referrals?
Yeah. I mean, I ask. So my mom writes out my thank you cards. So I guess you can call her a fourth assistant. But in every thank you card that gets written out, we ask specifically for referrals. We send out a birthday card, and in the birthday card, I include a $1 scratch off lottery ticket. And we say, hope this year's lucky for you. What would make us lucky is if you were to pass along our name and number. On April Fools, I always send out an email to all of my customers that says, I don't like referrals. And then you open it up and it's an April Fool's Day joke. So it's a bunch of little reminders and impressions. But more than anything, it's always keeping my customer in the loop. Whenever there's a change in the industry, whenever we come up for open enrollment, I do a lot of education. I do a lot of videos. I mean, I will record a 5-minute Zoom, send it out to my whole customer base and just update them on things. And because of the fact that I'm keeping them knowledgeable about what's going on in the industry, they want to pass along the information because they understand that we're providing a value and a service.
Right. And you've spoken a little bit to it, but obviously the thank you card, what other components do you have to your post-sale process?
So as soon as the sale is completed, now we have a daily tracker. So at the end of every day, I have to go in and log all my sales and log, what my customer bought into an Excel spreadsheet that my assistants then check the very next morning. And so from there, my assistants craft an email to my customers saying, here's what you bought. Here's what it costs. Here's the drafts that already happened. Here's the payments that you need to make. Here's your temporary cards if it's a short-term plan, until your permanent cards come in the mail. So it's a pretty comprehensive email that goes out. But then we do 2 to 3 touch points a year. We have a service called TextBox, which now with this new Zoom service, we're probably going to switch over to Zoom. But with TextBox, I can text all of my customers. So perfect example, everyone gets their rate increase letter on their ACA plan in October, right? They get their rate increase letter before the subsidies change.
Right.
They get a completely fictitious rate increase letter. So as soon as those rate increase letters go out, we send a text to every customer. Hey, we know you got this rate increase letter. Don't freak out. In another 2 weeks, your subsidy is going to change. We will review it at that point. But I take what would be potentially hundreds of inbound calls and eliminate it with one text by reaching out to all of your customers the minute that letter hits. Then 2 weeks later, when the subsidies go out, okay, great. Now we know what your new rate's going to be. We know what your new subsidies are going to be. If you're happy with your rate and you're happy with your plan, you're good. If you had any changes, your health changed, your income changed, et cetera, we have to meet. If you're in between, give us a call and we'll figure out if we need to meet. And so all of those inbound calls will then come into my assistants. They will flush out. Nope, you don't need to make a change. You're good where you are. Or yeah, you probably should at least set up an appointment. And that's what filters out who I see and don't see. So TextBox can be a huge service of reaching out to hundreds or thousands of customers in one fell swoop. Because let's face it, as silly as it sounds to people like Silas and I who were doing paper rates when we started in the industry, email is almost a dinosaur at this point. So the text message is what you need to get to. And if you're not communicating to your customers through text, how many are not seeing the emails that you're sending out? So that service has been very valuable.
So it was called TextBox?
TextBox, but I think the Zoom service, the new Zoom service is supposed to have the same technology. We're trying to get the definitive answer on that from them right now. But if we can do mass texting through Zoom, we're going to be switching to that ASAP.
I mean, we use Zoom obviously for this type of environment, but I've never used it. I didn't even know how to texting platform.
They're literally just building out. It's an upgrade to this service. It's going to cost like $100 a month, but you're going to be able to do all your texting. You're going to be able to set your appointments. You're going to be able to transfer someone from a phone call to a Zoom right mid conversation. It's a pretty cool technology. I'd suggest you get the Zoom guy on to talk about it because it's going to be a value add for people for sure. Wow.
Okay. Thank you. And that kind of leads into another question I had just around third-party technology. I don't know. You'd mentioned Quote Connect, so it sounds like you do a lot of Quote Connect. Do you use the CRM? And then are there other outside third-party vendors that you use to kind of complement what Health Markets has?
So TextBox is the one that we really use a lot of. We don't really use the CRM a lot just because we found it to be inaccurate. We still do all of our quoting and enrolling through Quote Connect when it's appropriate for that particular carrier. But the other thing that we do is just Google Docs. I've got my spreadsheet of my customer base, so my book of business. I've got a spreadsheet of all the sales that I make. So we've just got a Google Doc out there that gives us easy access to all of our information out there.
Okay. So how many team members do you have now on your sales team?
10.
10. Okay. So you've obviously seen, I mean, I know over the years, you've seen a lot of people find success in this business. You've seen a lot of people crash and burn, kind of as you train and observe other agents. I'd love for you to give us a little feedback on what you see, big mistakes that people make early in their careers. Maybe some of the things that, obviously lead to a successful career. You've just got 20 years worth of observation that I'd love you to dive a little deeper and give us some ideas around that.
Yeah. So, first, I've got a small team compared to most people out there. And I'm okay with that. Of our 10 agents, I want to say 7 of them are tier 3 or tier 4. Average agent income of our 10 is about $220,000. So we're small but mighty. And so, we're a very, very big believer on our team of we don't want mediocre. We don't want, people who are just here to make 40 or 50 grand. We want people who are truly going to make a lot of money. And so the biggest issues that we see or the biggest failures that I see One is that agent who thinks they're going to come in and dial outbound calls and call third-party leads, and that's going to be their business, right? They think that they're going to sit behind the desk, work off the phone, and that's how their business is going to go. This is a sweat equity business. Networking, setting up centers of influence, meeting people in your community is so very important. I mean, I don't know if you still talk about the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but that's huge for us. Fine, get 1/3 of your business from health markets. No problems with that. That's the way it should be. But that means that 2/3 of your business is not coming from health markets. And if you're not marketing yourself, if you're not out there in the community, you're absolutely going to die on the vine. So someone who just dials or doesn't commit a full 1/3 of their week to advertising is the biggest pitfall that I see. The second is the engineer of the world. And what I mean by that is the person who needs to know how everything works and why everything works and the ins and outs of everything. And it's a paralysis by analysis before they can get out there and start selling. And if you're independently wealthy and you can afford to go 6 months without an income, great. But for most people, that's not an option. And so luckily, very early on, my sales leader, Dan Orphan, told me the mere fact that you've got an insurance license makes you more knowledgeable than 99% of the people you're going to talk to. Yep. And so you have to get out there with the knowledge you have and do what you can do until you have all this industry knowledge, because even 21 years in, the industry changes every single year. So if I sit there and analyze everything and have to know the ins and outs of literally everything before I go out to the field, I'm never, ever going to be able to truly service customers.
Yep, exactly. So an agent had a question here just on product. Sean asked thoughts on accident expense guard and pro guard versus accident companion. I guess, do you sell any UHC supplemental products?
I really don't. More of the fact that it's just convenient to do the Chesapeake stuff. When I've looked at the UHC, I've never seen it to be significantly better or significantly cheaper. They're all kind of homogenized in my opinion. So because of that, because of the fact that we own Chesapeake, it's just always been the easier way for me to go. And so it's not to say that it's the right way, but no, I've really stuck with the Chesapeake stuff.
Yeah, understand. So what are you changing for 2022? I mean, 20 years in, I think a lot of agents perceive that, hey, we've got this well-oiled machine, we're not making any tweaks or adjustments on things. I know I'm constantly honing and refining systems, processes, like how I do things, critically evaluating, what I'm doing and what the outputs are. I'm just kind of interested, what are you looking at changing this year into the next year? Kind of what's your practice look like moving forward?
Yeah, so every year you've got to expect to blow up one part of your business, right? There's something in your business that is inefficient or doesn't work or isn't profitable, and you've got to be willing to completely blow up one part of your business. If you're not willing to do that, you're going to be a typewriter salesman. I mean, you have to evolve. You have to understand that the industry is going to change. I was in this industry before Obamacare. And we didn't ask we didn't ask financial questions. We asked medical questions for every appointment. There was no open enrollment. There was no subsidies. And so every year there's a huge change on the industry side. So you've got to embrace that change. So to specifically get to your question, Silas, one of the things that I'm doing a lot of now are ICHRAs. Very, very few people even know what they are. Even less people know how they work. And if people in the industry don't know what they are and how they work, consumers certainly don't. And so as an educator, as a teacher, to be able to go to someone and say, here's a concept you've never heard of, but it's going to help your business in A, B, C, and D ways, it kind of gets people to turn on the lights and they say, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Now, here's the thing. Individual plans are 30% cheaper in Columbus than group plans. In Michigan, it's not that way. So ICHRAs are a great offering in the Columbus area. ICHRAs don't make nearly as much sense in the Detroit area. But nonetheless, you find a wrinkle in your area that's something you can exploit, and you continue to exploit it. The other thing, like I said, is I'm hiring a new assistant who's now going to be booking all of my appointments. She's going to be managing my schedule. That's a huge step out of my comfort zone. For 21 years, I've booked all of my appointments, and now I'm handing the reins off to someone else. That's going to free me up 15 to 20 hours a week right there. It's going to require a lot of hand holding and making sure that she steps into the business the right way. But if all goes well, it potentially frees up just an incredible amount of time for new sales that could explode my business next year.
Yeah. And I would echo that. When Christy started with me almost 9 years ago, and that was a big function, is taking over scheduling. And now Nikki does it for me. And just having that off your plate is, you're going to have a lot more time for the lake. So that's a good thing.
So, it doesn't stink.
No, that doesn't stink. So having been with Health Markets for 21 years, I know you've probably, like many of us, been wooed by many would-be competitors. You've looked at other opportunities. I'm certain of that. There's got to be a few key reasons why you've continued to affiliate yourself with Health Markets for 20 plus years. You want to share any thoughts around that with us?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll admit, I definitely have taken those meetings. I can remember U.S. Health Advisors flying me out to Vegas and, trying to show me what they had to offer and all that sort of stuff. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. At the end of the day, one of the biggest reasons why I'm here is I'm lazy. And I say that in jest, but let me explain. I love running my business, but I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want to sit there and have to chase commissions. I don't want to have to deal with technology. And at the end of the day, there's a ton of bonuses that we get because of the overall sales that we wouldn't get if we were independent. And so if I can have someone else chase my commissions, if I can have someone else deal with the technology things, if I can have someone else, do all the background stuff so that I can run my marketing business, right? I'm not an accountant. I'm not a legal team. I'm not a technology department. I'm a marketer. So I get to market 40, 50 hours a week and let everyone else do everything else. I mean, that's why I have 3 assistants. They deal with customer service. They deal with claims. They deal with, all the admin things. I'm a marketer. I market 40 to 50 hours a week, and that's all I do every week. Stay in your lane.
Yep, I totally agree. I think so many people that I talk to early in business, they're trying to do so many things. I had that conversation yesterday with a new agent who's considering coming on, and they're like, they want to do everything. They want to be a property and casualty insurance agent. They want to be a financial planner. They want to be a health and life insurance agent. And I'm like, you got to specialize. You got to pick one thing and specialize in it and do it really, really well. So
why didn't Taco Bell's fresh menu work? Why doesn't McDonald's sell more salads? It's not what their customer wants. You can't do it all. Starbucks is open every morning. Why don't they sell beer at night? I mean, they've all tried it and they've all failed. There's very, very few companies that can step outside of what their target market is and make it work. Stay in your lane. There's a lot of money to be had in your lane. Let me tell you, there's a lot of money to be had in your lane.
What do you love about what you do most?
I love the fact that I get to go on the boat 4 or 5 days a week. I love the fact that, I can work hard in October, November, December when it gets dark at 5 o'clock at night and be able to provide for my family the rest of the year. I love the fact that I can put in 15, 20 years worth of hard work and live on residuals for a long, long time thereafter. I don't know of another business where you truly can control all of that and then get paid for the rest of your life. I mean, my grandfather died in 1998. My grandmother still gets a commission check to this day. He was in the insurance industry. I guess I should close that loop. But yeah, he was in the insurance industry. He has been out of the industry since probably 1990, dead since 98, yet my grandmother still gets a residual check.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So do you have any other thoughts? And I'll open it up here in just a minute. If you guys have any questions you want to ask Mike, we've got a few minutes left, but do you have any final thoughts, anything that you'd like to share with my team? Obviously we've worked in bordering states for many years. And I've obviously observed all that you've done over the years. Is there anything though you'd like to share with the team that we haven't talked about?
I mean, the biggest piece of advice is just put your head down and go. 2 years, put your head down and go. Cut out the personal life, cut out, anything else you have going on for 2 years. I mean, if you were going to be a doctor, it'd be an 8-year commitment with clinicals and, having to be a resident and all that sort of stuff. If you're going to be an attorney, you got to spend all that time passing the bar. With any industry, there's you got to put in your time. Put in your time here for 2 years, not 40 hours a week, not 45 hours a week, not even 50 hours a week. Put in your time for 2 years, 55, 60 hours a week. And you'll look back and you'll be making $250,000 a year. You'll be living 100% off of referrals and, have a great marketing budget and campaign that you can put out there. And you're going to say, why didn't I do this earlier? Now, granted, I was lucky enough to do that at 21, 22 years of age, where I didn't have a wife and kids and bills. And so it was easier to do it. So I'm not trying to downplay the other things that we have going on in life. But if you can truly commit to this business for 2 years, you will live like no one else in the country gets to. And I firmly believe that.
Right, exactly. I've had a lot of private messages coming through on Zoom here, people saying that this is one of the most impactful. I think it's because you're quick-witted. We've flown through a ton of information. I mean, in 50 minutes, we've covered a lot of ground. Honestly, I've done this a few other times, a number of other people, and I'm getting better feedback right now than we've had in a long time. So I really appreciate you taking the time and jumping in. Does anybody have any questions to ask? Yeah, go ahead.
So real quick, just to speak to that, and I appreciate the kind words. It's just because I love to teach, right? That's my brand. That's so that whether it's teaching you or teaching customers, I love to teach.
Right. Well, and you've obviously figured out how to communicate well. I've said that for years, that we're in a sales business, but we're much more educators, teachers, and advisors than we are salespeople. When I have every product available, I don't have to be a salesperson and putting someone into a specific product. It needs to flow to where they need it to go. And I think that comes with the teaching aspect of things. So great. Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to ask Mike about how he runs such a successful practice? I mean, geez, I was looking last year. I think I put that in the email this morning that you were over like 845,000, for the year. And I don't know. I didn't look back at previous years. I know you've always been up there, but was that a specifically big year for you, or is that kind of been on track with where you've been the last couple of years?
So I've got to give credit to my fiance, soon to be wife. I got comfortable there for a while. So, 2002, 2003, 2004, I was top 3 or 4 in the nation. And then probably from 2010 through, 2020, I was making a good income. I really didn't need to work hard. So I was on the lake a lot during that time period. And then we went to Curacao and they announced the Portugal trip. And my fiance said, so we're going to Portugal, right? And I said, no, that's a top 15. She goes, you could be top 15. I was like, no, those days are behind me. I don't want to do that anymore. She goes, no, we're going to Portugal. I'm like, damn it, now I got to work again. So I went out and qualified for Portugal, and thanks COVID that there was no Portugal. And so then I said, oh, hey, we're going to go to Portugal again. And I'm like, great, now I got to work for it again. And so we qualified the second time only to have them not go again. So I've worked to get in the top 15 for the last 2 years, only to not even be able to go on the trip. So I guess the short answer to your question is it depends upon what the next trip will be as to what my numbers are next year.
Yeah, no, that's
because it's not income anymore, right? It's you make enough money. It's not about the money. It's not about any of that. It's about having fun. And when the contest is there, yeah, go out and do it.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to ask of Mike? I'm checking the chat box, see if there's anything there worth passing along. I would mention, nice point, Cav. So in Indiana, that accident companion dropped in price just a couple of weeks ago. It really was quietly done, but you mentioned it was $28 a month for an individual to have $10,000 of benefit in Ohio or Michigan. Here in Indiana, that's now dropped to $10.21 a month for a single person to have 82 or to have 10,000 of coverage. Cav did the math, and it'd take 82 years to break even on that at that particular rate. So look hard at the accident companion if you're selling in Indiana. Or any other state, but Indiana.
If you sell a health policy and don't include that, shame on you. In fact, I mean, that's just how it is. That's such a no-brainer. $10,000 of a benefit for $10 a month, absolute no-brainer. And if a customer was to say no, I might stop and say, I don't know that I want you as a customer. I mean, if you can't get the concept for $10 a month to have $10,000 of a benefit, I worry about where your thought process is. I mean, that's a no brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last question I want to ask you, and this wasn't on actually Mariah asked this, and so I'll come back to my last question. She said, do you have a favorite book? I don't know if you're a reader or not, but do you have a favorite book or a book that changed your career?
So there's a couple. Very early on, there was a lot of Tom Hopkins, a lot of Zig Ziglar type stuff. Then I got into more of the, Who Moved My Cheese, as we needed to adapt and evolve, right? Once I got demoted, and I had to reinvent myself. Who Moved My Cheese was a big one. The 12-week year is a good one. So all of those I like. And now it's a lot of TED Talks. It's more staying motivated and just quick 5-10 minute videos instead of books. So you get the same concept, but now that I've got more drive time to be able to listen to something or watch something instead of having to read, is what I've switched a lot to.
Yeah, good. So my last thing, I just wondered if there's a specifically impactful claims story that you have from the recent years. I know obviously with the volume that you're selling, you've had probably a lot of very impactful claims, but is there one in particular that kind of stands out in your mind you could share with us about, a client reaping the rewards of the work that you did to properly protect them?
Yeah, there's, not one in particular, but the amount of $30, $40, $50,000 critical illness checks that have been out there are big. Certainly I just had a friend of mine whose husband died, and they had a $750,000 life insurance policy. He was 34. So they have a 5-year-old son at home. And so the $750,000 was the money to have her move out of the house that they had lived in, because she just couldn't bring herself to live in that house anymore. And she was able to pay cash for the new house. So that one was big. But I think for every one claim that you have, there's also the one that didn't. And what I mean by didn't is the customer who said, I'm going to go a month without coverage and needs an appendix, or gets diagnosed with cancer, or there's been countless of those. I can't tell you how many customers have gone a week without coverage and had something come up. And you don't want to be a vigilante in regards to the industry, but you know what, at the end of the day, you got to be passionate about what you do. And when you see someone who doesn't have the coverage and then needs the coverage, and they come back to you saying, oh man, I wish I would have done this, or I'm sorry I didn't do that, it just makes you more and more willing to not allow customers to take that off. And I think that's the important part there. Is I am very passionate. I am very committed to what I do, but you know what? I'm not going to allow a customer to sell me on why they shouldn't have it. In every appointment, a sale happens. You either sell the customer on why they should, or they sell you on why they shouldn't. And if you're being sold, you need to reevaluate why. And I firmly believe that an accident companion should be on every deal. I firmly believe that a critical illness should be on pretty much every deal. And so I am not going to allow my customer to say, I don't need it, it's not going to happen. Because if it's not going to happen, why are you buying health insurance in the first place? Great, it's not going to, and I have said this to customers. Great, if it's not going to happen to you, don't buy the health insurance. Well, but something could happen. No, you just told me it's not going to happen. So if you don't need this, then you don't need this. And there's been 3, 4, 5 customers in the last 21 years who have said, fine, I'll go work with someone else. Okay. But for every one customer who says, I'll go work with someone else, there's 100 who say, you're right. If this is going to happen, then this could happen. I need to be protected the right way.
Yeah.
So I'll never ask you to sell something outside of a customer's budget. I'll never ask you to sell something for your own personal gain. But if you come to me worried about this, then we need to think about the after effects of it, the non-direct medical costs, the lost wages, et cetera. And that's where you become a consultant. That's where you become an advisor.
Yeah, very well said, man. Well, this has been an awesome hour. I can't believe an hour has passed, but I know with your busy schedule, it's a lot to carve this out. So thank you for taking the time. I owe you 6 to 10 cold beverages at some point in the near future. So I'll try to. Yeah,
you don't have to ask me twice.
How far from me are you in Michigan now? I know you've moved up here, but I don't know exactly where your Michigan home is.
How far are you from Elkhart?
So I'm about 20 minutes to the east. So I'm exit like 107, close to Sturgis.
Yeah, probably about 3 hours.
3 hours. Okay. I was thinking you were closer. I was thinking you were in southern Michigan somewhere with your.
I am. I'm between Detroit and Ann Arbor.
Okay. Okay, good deal. Well, we need to connect in person sometime here soon, man. Hopefully, whether it's a company thing or even just getting together, I always welcome the opportunity to sit down with you and chat more. So thank you for your time.
August 28th is the housewarming. Come on up.
August 28th. All right. I'll make a note of that.
More than welcome to have all you guys come out. I don't care. It's going to be a big party.
Well, hey, man, thanks again for being with us today. We really, really appreciate it, your insights and your guidance. For those of you who are on the call, I hope you took something from today. If you didn't take something, you weren't concentrating or paying attention because there was a lot packed into this last hour. Cav, you're kind of the senior veteran on the call. You got any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, I just texted you because, hi, Mike. It's been a while since we've talked, but
yeah, I haven't seen you in a while, Steve. How you been?
Yeah. But I just texted Silas. It's kind of interesting. You're about as close to what we teach as anyone he's ever had on here. So I just like this because I help Silas teach a lot. And, you're talking about texting and just going out in the field and doing that and just putting in your time. I'm glad you said that because Silas and I say this over and over again. And I think some people just think, God, you guys are full of it. It's nice to have someone else kind of back that up. So thanks.
Anytime. I will gladly come on whenever you guys want me to. Well, not October, November, December.
Yeah, work works. I think that's what it boils down to. So, well, hey, everybody, we're going to take a week off next week. We'll be back on the 12th of July with our next ADT session. So we'll be prepped for that. We'll have some great content for you. I hope everybody has a great 4th of July. If you need anything from me this week, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you need something really urgent next week, I'll be available too. So, Gatteri, thanks again for being here, man. Really appreciate you.
Glad to do it. Bye, guys.
Yeah. Bye.